There they are, watching you walk through that door like you're some kind of ghost they weren't expecting to see. Like you're supposed to still be broken somewhere, hidden away, licking wounds they inflicted. But here you are, alive, present, undeniably different. And that difference is making them uncomfortable in ways they can't quite name. You know what's happening right now, don't you? Something clicked. Something shifted. And if you're feeling this too, if these words are hitting different, do me a favor, let me know in the comments below. Drop a word that describes where you're at right now. And if this resonates, subscribe, because we're just getting started. There's more where this came from, and you're going to want to be here for what comes next. Watch their faces closely. Notice how their smiles tighten just slightly when you enter. How conversations pause for a fraction of a second too long. How the energy in the room recalibrates itself around your presence. They're not reacting to who you were. They're reacting to who you've become. And that person standing in front of them right now, that person doesn't match the story they've been telling themselves. See, they had you categorized. They had you filed away in a mental drawer labeled broken, predictable, manageable. They thought your absence meant defeat. They assumed your silence was surrender. They believed that when you finally resurfaced, you'd come crawling back, softer, apologetic, easier to digest. They expected healing to make you gentle, to make you accommodating again. Instead, you walked back in, like you own the gravity in the room. You didn't announce your transformation. You didn't explain your absence. You didn't perform recovery for their comfort. You simply existed on a frequency they no longer have the password to access. And that's what's eating them alive right now. Not your anger they could handle. Not your pain means they still matter. No, what's destroying them is your indifference. Complete, genuine, unbothered indifference. Because indifference means they've been demoted. From main character to background extra. From someone whose opinion mattered to someone whose judgment barely registers as noise. You didn't just remove them from your life, you removed their relevance from your consciousness entirely. You deleted their access codes. You changed the locks. You burned the entire system where their validation used to hold weight. Now watch what happens behind those forced smiles and polite small talk. There's a full-blown identity crisis brewing, and you're the catalyst. Because if someone like you, someone they witnessed at rock bottom, someone they saw completely shattered, can rise up moving like this, speaking like this, existing with this kind of unshakable presence, then what does that say about them? What does that say about every excuse they've been feeding themselves? Every reason they've given for staying scared, staying small, staying comfortable in their self-imposed limitations. You became living evidence that transformation isn't just possible, it's inevitable when you stop negotiating with your own potential. And that terrifies people who've been sitting in the same spot for years, calling it stability when it's really just stagnation wearing a respectable mask. They want your formula. They're searching for the secret, the hack, the shortcut you took to get here. They want to know what book you read, what guru you followed, what pill you took, what prayer you said. They want the sanitized, safe, step-by-step version they can follow without any real risk. But here's the truth that's going to haunt them. There is no safe version of what you did. What you did was dangerous, reckless even. You walked straight into your own darkness, without a map, without backup, without guarantees. You didn't just face your demons, you sat down and had coffee with them. You learned their names, studied their patterns, understood their language. And then, instead of fighting them or fleeing from them, you integrated them. You turned your darkness into fuel. That's why your energy feels foreign to them now. That's why they can't quite place what's different about you. You're not bitter, but you're definitely not naive. You're not cold, but you're not warm in the ways they remember. You're not closed off, but you're absolutely unavailable for their nonsense. You exist in a dimension they can't reach because you paid the entry price with every tear they never witnessed, every breakdown that happened in private, every night you wanted to quit but chose to continue anyway. You earned this version of yourself through actual metamorphosis, not through affirmations taped to your mirror, not through vision boards and manifestation journals, through blood and rebuilding, through dying to who you were and refusing to stay buried. Let's talk about how you move now. There's something different in your walk. People notice it even if they lack the vocabulary to describe it. There's no urgency in your steps anymore, no apology in your shoulders, no searching in your gaze. You move through spaces like someone who's already arrived, even if you're still constructing. You move like someone who understands their value, isn't subject to debate, doesn't require external confirmation, isn't determined by who chooses or rejects them. You move like someone who chose themselves so completely that everyone else's opinion became irrelevant background music. That kind of self-possession, that's what's triggering their existential crisis. Because most people spend their entire existence performing, adjusting their personality based on the audience, shape-shifting to be accepted, to be liked, to be chosen. But you stopped auditioning. You walked off stage. You built your own venue. And now they're spiraling because their entire sense of superiority was built on the premise that you needed them. They needed you to need them. That was the unspoken contract. They were the stable ones, the successful ones, the ones with answers. And you were the cautionary tale, the mess, the example of what happens when you don't follow the rules. But then you committed the ultimate betrayal. You thrived without their approval. You became magnetic without their validation. You built something that makes their carefully curated, acceptable lives look like prisons they're too comfortable to escape. When they look at you now, they don't see someone beneath them anymore. They see a mirror reflecting everything they're too frightened to become. Here's what they'll never admit out loud. They miss the old you. Not because that version was better, but because that version was controllable. That version sought their approval. That version apologized for taking up space. That version made them feel necessary, important, superior. This version doesn't need rescue, doesn't need fixing, doesn't need their advice, their pity, or their permission. This version is self-sufficient, self-assured, self-contained. And that makes you dangerous because people who need nothing from you cannot be manipulated, cannot be guilted, cannot be molded into supporting roles in someone else's narrative. So they observe. They watch how you handle confrontation. Now you don't take the bait. You don't defend yourself against accusations that hold no weight. You don't explain yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You just exist in your truth so solidly that lies slide off you like rain off glass. They watch how you handle rejection. Now you don't chase, don't convince, don't negotiate your worth. Someone doesn't recognize your value. You genuinely wish them well and continue forward. No bitterness, no revenge fantasies, no secret hope they'll realize their mistake. Just clean, complete detachment. That level of emotional maturity is foreign territory to them because they're still trapped in patterns of reaction, still surrendering their power to whoever triggers them. They watch how you handle success too. You don't broadcast it, but you don't minimize it either. You don't downplay your victories to make others comfortable. You don't shrink to squeeze into spaces that were never designed for the expanded version of you. You celebrate yourself privately, internally, without needing external validation to confirm that yes, you're doing something right. That self-validation, that's the part that really breaks their brains. because they're still outsourcing their sense of worth, still posting for reactions, still performing for approval, still measuring their value by metrics controlled by others. But you became your own metric, your own standard, your own authority on what matters and what doesn't. Now, let's get into the specifics of why your current energy is causing widespread panic among people who thought they had you figured out. It starts with your eyes. Something fundamental changed there. They used to be able to read you easily, used to see hope, hurt, the need for connection. Now when they look at you, they encounter something else. Not hardness, not coldness, but depth they're not equipped to navigate. Your eyes now carry the weight of someone who's seen through the illusions, who's walked through flames, and emerged understanding that most of what people call important is just elaborate distraction. Your eyes now look at people and situations with an X-ray quality that makes the fake ones nervous. They can feel you seeing past their masks, past their performances, straight into the truth they're hiding from themselves. Then there's your voice. The tone shifted. It's steadier now, clearer, stripped of the need to convince or prove. You speak less frequently, but when you do, people listen differently. Not because you're louder, but because your words originate from somewhere deeper now. They come from certainty rather than seeking, from experience rather than theory, from wisdom earned through actual transformation rather than borrowed philosophy from people who haven't lived it. It doesn't rise in defense anymore, doesn't crack under pressure, doesn't scramble to fill uncomfortable silences. You've become comfortable with the pause, with the space, with letting your silence communicate more than their noise. That comfort with silence, that's what's really unsettling them, because silence reveals. It doesn't allow people to hide behind constant chatter and deflection. Your boundaries are what's truly causing the existential meltdown, though. Because you don't just set them now, you enforce them without explanation, without guilt, without needing to justify why certain things aren't acceptable to you anymore. Someone crosses a line, you don't issue warnings. You don't give chances to people who already showed you exactly who they are. You just create distance. Clean, clear, non-negotiable distance. No drama, no announcements, no burning bridges with theatrical speeches, just quiet removal of access. That level of boundary enforcement without emotional chaos attached, they've never witnessed that before. They're accustomed to boundaries being negotiable, being tested, being eroded through persistence or guilt. But yours aren't. Yours are constructed from something they can't penetrate because they're not built from anger or fear. They're built from self-respect so solid it doesn't require defending. The way you handle their attempts to provoke you now is particularly maddening for them. They'll throw out little comments, little jabs, little tests designed to trigger a reaction, to see if you still care, to see if they still matter, to see if they can still get under your skin. And you just smile. Not the fake smile they remember, not the tight-lipped, polite smile that masks resentment, but a genuine smile that comes from finding their attempts almost endearing in their transparency. You see through the games now. You understand the psychology behind the provocation. And instead of playing, you simply observe it like watching a documentary. Fascinating behavior, but not something you're participating in. That refusal to engage in their drama, that's what makes them spiral. Because if you're not reacting, they can't gauge where they stand with you. They can't manipulate your emotions to maintain relevance in your world. Let's talk about how you show up to spaces now. You used to arrive early, leave late, make sure everyone was comfortable, play emotional support for people who never reciprocated. Now you arrive exactly when you intend to. You leave when you're finished, not when others grant permission. You don't feel obligated to perform emotional labor for people who treated your energy like it was limitless and free. You show up as yourself, whole and complete, not as a mirror reflecting what others want to see. You bring your full presence into rooms, instead of leaving pieces of yourself at the door to make others comfortable. That full presence, it's intense, it's palpable. It changes the energy of any space you occupy, because you're no longer dimming yourself to fit in. You're simply existing at full brightness and letting the room adjust to you. They notice how you dress now too. Not trying to impress, not trying to blend in, not following trends to feel included. You dress like someone who already knows who they are and doesn't need clothing to create an identity. Whether it's simple or elaborate, there's an authenticity to it that cannot be faked. You wear your style the way you wear your energy unapologetically, as a reflection of internal state rather than external seeking. That alignment between inner and outer, that's rare. Most people use their appearance to create a persona they wish they embodied. You use yours to express who you actually are. The difference is subtle, but people feel it. They can't articulate why, but they know something's fundamentally different about the way you occupy space. Now here's where it gets really interesting. They're starting to realize you're not coming back. Not in the way they anticipated. They expected you to heal enough to be friendly again, accessible again, available for their convenience again. They thought time would soften you back into the version that accommodated their nonsense. But time didn't soften you. Time refined you. Time burned away everything that wasn't essential. And what remains is someone they don't have a blueprint for handling. You're not bitter, so they can't dismiss you as wounded. You're not vengeful, so they can't paint you as the villain. You're not struggling, so they can't offer hollow support to feel superior. You're just gone in all the ways that matter while still being physically present. That's the crisis. You're right there, but completely unreachable. The panic really intensifies when they realize you've built an entire life they're not part of. New circles, new interests, new goals. New version of happiness that doesn't include them, need them, or reference them at all. You're not trying to make them jealous. You're not posting to show them what they're missing. You're genuinely just living a life that makes sense to you, that fulfills you, that reflects your values and priorities. And somehow that's more painful for them than if you were obviously trying to get revenge. Because revenge means they still matter. This means they don't. They've been downgraded from main character to distant memory, from priority to afterthought, from important to irrelevant, and they can feel it every time they're in your presence or absence. Your relationship with time changed too, and they can sense it. You're not in a rush anymore, not frantically trying to make up for lost time, not anxiously trying to prove you're okay. You move at your own pace now, completely unconcerned with whether others think you're moving too slow or too fast. You understand that your journey isn't a race, isn't a competition, isn't a performance for others to judge. You're building something real, and real things take time. That patience, that trust in your own timing, that refusal to let others rush you or slow you down based on their comfort, it gives you a quality of timelessness, like you exist slightly outside the frantic energy most people operate from. Like you found a different frequency where urgency doesn't dictate your decisions. They're having existential crises because you're forcing them to confront questions they've been avoiding. If you could transform this much, what does that say about their excuses? If you could become this self-sufficient, what does that say about their dependencies? If you could find peace without external validation, what does that say about their constant seeking? If you could thrive after everything that happened, what does that say about their choice to remain stuck? You're not trying to make them question themselves. You're not trying to inspire them or teach them or prove anything to them. But your existence, your energy, your way of being now is an automatic challenge to every limiting belief they're clinging to. And they resent that. They resent that you're living proof that the limitations they accepted aren't universal truths. They're just choices. Choices you stopped making. Let's address the elephant in the room. They're obsessed with figuring out if you're happy. They analyze your presence for clues. They ask mutual connections if you're really doing as well as you appear. They want evidence that you're secretly struggling, secretly lonely, secretly regretting the distance you created. Because if you're happy without them, if you're thriving without their influence, if you're better off after cutting ties, then that destroys the narrative they built about themselves being essential to your well-being. The truth they're running from is obvious to everyone but them. You are happy. Not in the toxic positivity, forced gratitude, fake it till you make it way, but in the deep, quiet, unshakable way that comes from genuine alignment with yourself. You're happy because you stopped betraying yourself to keep others comfortable. You're happy because you chose peace over popularity. You're happy because you built a life that's yours, not a life that looks good to others. The way you handle conflict now is another source of their confusion. You don't avoid it out of fear, but you don't seek it out either. When it's necessary, you address it clearly, calmly, without transforming it into dramatic warfare. You state your truth, you listen to theirs. You find resolution, if possible, or create boundaries, if not. But you don't weaponize conflict. Don't use it to punish. Don't drag it out for effect. You handle it like an adult who's secure enough to disagree without needing to destroy. That maturity makes their chaos look juvenile. When they try to drag you into drama, try to make you pick sides, try to get you invested in their battles and beefs, you just don't bite. You stay in your lane. You protect your peace. You refuse to let their emergencies become your crisis. And that drives them absolutely insane because they can't hook you anymore. You're not reactive. You're not available for their games. You're just done playing roles in their dysfunctional theater. This is who you are now. This is what you've become, not through pretending, not through performing, but through actual transformation. Through walking through fire and deciding not just to survive it, but to be forged by it. You're not better than them, you're just finally being honest with yourself in ways they're still too afraid to be. And that honesty, that authenticity, that refusal to live by their rules anymore, that's what's causing the existential crisis. Not because you're attacking them, but because you're no longer participating in the collective delusion they still call normal life. You stepped out. You woke up. You chose differently. And now they have to either look at you and feel uncomfortable about their own choices, or look away and pretend you don't exist. Either way, you win, because you're not playing their game anymore. You're not even on their board. You're playing an entirely different game now, one where the only person you need to impress is the one staring back at you in the mirror. Welcome back. Not to who you were, but to who you've always been, underneath all the conditioning, all the people-pleasing, all the performance. Welcome back to yourself, the one they never really knew because you never really showed them, until now. And now that they see you, they can't unsee you. And that's gonna haunt them in ways they'll never admit, because you're living proof that the cage was always unlocked. They just never had the courage to walk out. But you did, and there's no going back from that.